Ready. Play.
Indeed, that's not too bad, is it? 130. And by the way, I think he's made some pretty good strides in the last couple of years on the serve. I think it's helped him basically win a Wimbledon title already. And that first serve there was lovely. The spot that he hit there was just almost impossible for Medvedev to do anything with. And as a result, we have match point at 40-30.
He is challenging it. I don't know why, because that was actually that was in. That was completely in.
Yeah, I think it's sort of a last chance saloon kind of challenge that. Match point, Carlos Alcaraz. Here we go. So, is he going to get the first serve in? No, he's not. As the line judge just dives out of the way of that one, and not a particularly venomous one in terms of speed, 117, but nevertheless, doesn't matter. Here we go. Second serve. That one lands in. Backhand return from Medi. Forehand from Alcaraz. He's in charge of the point, is he? No, we're kind of at neutral now. Backhand each to... Oh, but Medvedev in no man's land there. That was a bit of an unusual decision. And as a result, Carlos makes him pay. Alcaraz is into his second Wimbledon final in a row. Nice exchange at the net. We're almost back to square one when it comes to this rivalry. I can see David. I'll bring you forward. You give me a thumbs up, David. I can see you, and I'll bring you forward. I think he's just setting things up. As soon as you give me a thumbs up, David. Yeah, no worries. Okay, here we go. Hello, David. How are you? Long time.
Yeah, it's been a while. How are you?
Hey, yeah, not bad. One or two things have changed for you in the last few months. We might just touch on that at the end of our short little chat. But listen, a familiar feel, David, at the end of that kind of encounter and the matchup that they've had in the past?
Yeah. I mean, I think at the very, very highest level, movement is such a big part of the game. And, Medvedev is a fantastic mover for his size. But Carlos is just, electric. And I feel like whenever they play, Carlos is just going to make one or two extra balls over and over again. And that cumulative pressure over time will always build and essentially see him through unless he gets tight.
Are you surprised?
Alcaraz is, sorry, the last thing is Alcaraz is a very good front runner because he gets behind the ball so well and he moves so well that as long as he's feeling free, he's a great shot maker as well. And that is, once he gets in front and feels that freedom, it's very, very hard to get him to make him tight.
Are you surprised at how quickly Carlos has adapted to this surface? You saw him very close up at Queen's last year in the first round when I think he had to save a championship point.
Yeah.
Could you imagine from that day to now, which is just 13 months, that he would be in 2 Wimbledon finals and win a Queen's title as well?
I mean, once he had won Queen's, I thought if he made second week of Wimbledon that he would be, a contender. I thought it was a year too early, though. I really did. I felt like the way he played Queens, I think we talked about this before, was experimenting and basically preparing himself for this year. But he squeaked through that first match, and I think he had another tough one, second or third round, and then by the end of Queens, the growth in his game on grass was just phenomenal. And then obviously through to that Wimbledon final. But again, I thought it was a year too early for him to beat Novak. I was astounded that he beat Novak. And then, this year he comes back obviously with that additional confidence that he knows exactly what he's doing on a grass court.
James, do you want to ask something, or I've got something else for David if you want to hold off another minute or so?
You go first. I'll come in afterwards.
Yeah. Cool. What about Medvedev, David? Where are we at with him? He's getting very close. He's knocking at the door. He's in hard court finals, we know. Obviously, clay is a different issue for him generally, and then Wimbledon semi-finals back to back, and yet it feels as far away as ever. Certainly on grass, anyway, for Daniel, that he's able to beat players that he should beat, but the gap between him and the absolute elite on this surface. I mean, he maybe was a bit lucky against Yannick. Am I being unfair there for Daniel, David?
No, I think to beat Carlos or Yannick or Novak on this surface, he probably needs to get a little bit lucky, or for them to get a little bit extra nervous because he's staying so close. Because his game is also making a lot of extra balls, and his width on the court is phenomenal. You know, the way he hits his forehand, it is slightly funky, but he gets around the ball really, really well, which takes the ball out of court well. The backhand, the same thing. He steers it really well with using the left hand. And he runs onto the ball so well. So, you know, if you attack him, he'll run, you know, from far back. He turns in on the court, which also allows him to get a lot of angles. But and of course the serve is very effective. So he's always dangerous. But ultimately, I would say that the movement that Alcaraz and Sinner and Novak have, which he has equally, but he's a bigger guy, and the maybe slightly extra skills they have, they're all just a little bit more, well, not maybe Sinner, but definitely Carlos and Novak are more comfortable at the net, and the ability to just change things up with the odd drop shot and you know, and then for Sinner, he can really flatten the ball out and really hurt Daniel as well. But I mean, Daniel's, you know, he could win one, but I'd say if it's Carlos or Novak or Sinner on the other side of the net, you know, they're going to have to be just slightly nervous and kind of get tangled up in their heads a bit, which I think Sinner did a little bit.
He this particular year as well, he was going to have to go through potentially Sinner, Carlos, and Novak, which would have been a tall order on any surface, but perhaps on grass more than anything else. One thing on Daniel as well. I mean, you've had to prepare a player in the past to face Daniel. I mean, when obviously that was Liam, I think, on a hard court last year. It was in Dubai.
Qatar, in Qatar, Doha.
Qatar, yeah. So, what are you telling Liam before that match, or what would you be telling any player if your man was Musetti, for example, or your man was? I guess it does depend on who your player is and what capabilities they have.
Yeah.
But what might you be telling, you know, ex-player before a match against Daniel, particularly on centre court?
I mean, the first thing you got to get your head in the right space, which is, you know, I'm going to suffer. You know, the player is going to have to be prepared to suffer, because the width that he creates means that you're doing a lot of running against Daniel. A lot of running. And you're going to have to, you know, stay in points. And when the ball is there to be hit, you're going to have to hit it. And if the chance to come forward is there, you're going to have to do it with full commitment. And, you know, be pretty sure that you're probably going to get an awkward volley, or, you know, or definitely a volley to play, especially on a hard court. And I think he's closer to these guys on I mean, it's not like he's being blown away by anybody in any shape or form, but I think a hard court is his best surface still, because you can't get on the grass. They can really, with the slice and everything, get that ball extra low, which they can't do on a hard court, and therefore it's easier for him to get under the ball and create the spin that is just a little trickier on grass for him. And I'd say it's the height of the ball that hurts him the most on grass, because you're going to have to play. Look, I mean, any player is going to have to beat Daniel, really, and it's not like you just have to make balls, because if you drop it short of that, he will hurt you. So it's, you know, he's a hugely tough competitor, and I'd say that the biggest thing is for a player's got to be good enough to stay with him in points in order to suffer. You know, it's all very well saying, yeah, I'm prepared to suffer, but if you're not good enough to stay in the points long enough, you're not going to suffer, because you're going to be missing too early. So yeah, I mean, it's very tricky against him because of the width as well. You're playing outside the tram lines a lot against Daniel, and that's an uncomfortable place for players. But if you stay relaxed about that, and you know it's going to be that, you can prepare for it, and you know, wait for your chances where the ball is sitting a little bit for you to take it early and hurt him. And of course, I think the drop shot is very, very valuable against him, because when he's playing from that far back, you know, and you're on the front foot, you know, it's very difficult for him to move forward on that. And the drop shot is it's almost a must against him as a change up, so that he cannot settle totally, you know, 2.5 meters, 3 meters behind the baseline and run onto balls all the time.
Yeah, you throw in Carlos Alcaraz's skill set, and I think you've just basically laid out the worst enemy for Daniel Medvedev on a grass court in particular. Just one other thing before I bring James in a second, is that's 30 top 10 wins now for Carlos, which is insane, bearing in mind he's 21 years old. And apparently he mentioned the football in his on-court interview. I don't know what he specifically said, but obviously being Spanish and a certain match coming up on Sunday against the English will be quite curious. James, do you want to fire a question, David?
Did he say he needs to finish the final before the football?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, that would make sense. But of course, if it is going to be Novak, well, no, it should be okay. I think 8 p.m. local time. Probably. I remember Berrettini finishing his final pretty quickly, as in a loss 3 years ago, that he had enough time to get over to Wembley and see the Italy-England final.
Yeah.
Go on, James.
So on that, I'm hoping that if Alcaraz wins, maybe that means that Spain will lose in the thing, just to kind of reverse engineer what happened 3 years ago. But no, my question is just generally, you know, do you now see the possibility of Medvedev winning a Grand Slam title as even further away than it has ever been? You know, given with what's happened, you know, with Sinner coming up and getting a title and beating Medvedev in Australia, the fact that Alcaraz seems to have had his number at the moment, and that you've got other youngsters like Majenovic and Draper that have run Medvedev very close in recent times.
I don't necessarily see it being further away. I mean, I think winning a Grand Slam now, you know, you had the big four and then the big three who were so dominant. I'm not sure I see, you know, it's still early days, Alcaraz, Sinner yet dominating the sport like you know, Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. Because I think tennis is changing slightly in that the young players coming through are all understanding that they have to be fearless if they're going to play with these guys, and they've almost forcing everybody. I think Novak's hitting the ball bigger as well. Is I feel like they're forcing players to become more fearless, to compete with them, and I think. I mean, Medvedev on a hard court, I think, is still someone that, through almost a bit of attrition and keeping them out there long enough, and you know, if their skill set just doesn't allow them to hit through him enough, or you know, bring him forward enough, or mess him out enough, you know, he could still win one. I'd say it's the same distance away. You know, it's the problem he does have is by the time you get to semis and finals, if he's facing one of the three at the moment, they're very confident by the time they get to semis or final.
Yeah.
And so maybe his best chance is other players take care of them for him, and then he's definitely in the mix to win one. And somebody can get injured and somebody takes out another one, and and suddenly you're not playing one of these three guys in a final, and that's a very different story. So the fact that he keeps putting himself in the mix and deep in the tournaments means he definitely has a chance to still win another one.
David, I don't know how well you know Juan Carlos Ferrero, but a lot is understandably spoken about the relationship him and Carlos have and the influence that he has on Carlos. Maybe a word on him and from the coach's perspective, just how important he is for Carlos's success.
Yeah, I think I've obviously experienced this myself as a coach. When you have such a close bond for so many years with a player, you know exactly what they're thinking, how they're thinking. You feel exactly pretty much what they feel. And if you kind of have the antidote to some of the anxiety that they feel, that is very, very helpful to them on court. And when they know that you totally believe in what they're doing, when it gets a little bit rocky and that voice on the side is saying, hey, this is normal, don't worry, you've come through this before, you can do it again, stay brave, giving them stuff that takes them out of their own head and back to focusing on the opponent. Other things like he's not feeling great either, he's tight as well, come on, that is hugely important. What I would say is different. Obviously, coaching is allowed now, and it has surprised me how much Juan Carlos talks to Carlos on the court. It's a lot, and maybe because coaching wasn't allowed, and if you look at previous generations of players, Sampras, Federer, though Nadal, I think Uncle Tony spoke to him quite a bit. Yeah, maybe it's just a different culture, but if you look at Sampras, Federer, I don't think they would have liked someone talking to them that much. I think they would have preferred getting on with it more themselves. But it works for them, and clearly it works extremely well. So it's a different model than we've seen before, but I mean, right now it's hugely effective. And of course, he's been there and done it himself as well, JC. So he knows exactly the feelings that. I mean, I'd say that Carlos now is so comfortable in on the big stages and the big matches that's not really a big part of it any longer.
Was the implementation, it's a nice question here from Sean, was the implementation of on-court coaching generally popular amongst the coaches that you've spoken to, or were there some that preferred to let their player do the talking, or what was the general feeling on that?
I mean, the consensus was highly for it. Okay. Because the issue was it was going on anyway. And there were anomalies, if the umpire and stuff like that didn't speak Russian or Czech or whatever, and so Chinese or Japanese or whatever, you almost felt like maybe English coaches and possibly Spanish were at a disadvantage because people could understand what they were saying, and every coach would say, I'm just encouraging.
Yeah.
Come on, get up to the ball quicker.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, so there's a line, isn't there?
come on, you can do this if you hit a few more line backhands.
Right, there you go. That's a really interesting way. So you've got to give him that encouragement, but you're then the second half of the sentence is attack.
Yeah. So so much of this was going on that it was the right thing, I believe, as well, to normalize it, because there wasn't a level playing field. It also depended then on the umpire, whether he picked up on it, whether they took issue with it. There was no formula to say that you could stop it consistently and in the same way. So I'd say 90% of coaches were on board with it.
All right, I have one more from you, David, because time is short for all of us, and I can see the players getting ready to go on to centre court. But yeah, just have a quick word, because since we last spoke, you and Liam no longer went together, and now you're working with Kyle. Of course, you and Liam had a long time together, albeit over 2 different spells, and now you have a fresh challenge, if you like.
Yeah, I think almost 10 years with Liam, 9.5 years pretty much, and he felt he wanted to try a different voice, and basically been with him for a third of his life almost.
Mm-hmm.
And once a player thinks that, they've got to do it, because he's got to feel at the end of his career that he's done absolutely everything that he believes is possible to do as well as he can. And on that basis, it's something that he felt he wanted to try. And I wish him absolutely the best of luck with it, because it could be something that makes a difference, because after 10 years, perhaps together we can't totally see the wood from the trees anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, the risk obviously is the stability that he's had, but unless he tries it, how's he going to know? So
sure. And now Kyle,
and now Kyle, which is a fantastic challenge for me. I'm relishing it. It's a long way back for him. He's 400 odd, but I certainly believe in the game, and from what I'm seeing recently, the body's holding up well now.
Okay.
And the movement is improving every day. So yeah, it's a very exciting project.
David, big thanks for joining us today. We'll catch up again soon. Good luck with the rest of this summer with Kyle, and and take care.
Thank you very much. Take care and keep doing your stuff.
All right.
Good.
Thanks, David. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, that brings an end to today's live action from the first semi-final as David sails off into the distance. A big thanks to him for coming on today. I hope you enjoyed that first men's semi-final. Of course, we have another one to come. And to everybody else, you know the drill. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.